The Fox City Score chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and happy Saturday, everyone. This is Rick Sense along with co-host Terry Pinch this week on Biz Talk with Score on WHBY. And we're getting really excited around here because Terry's been diligently working on a big project for our program. Terry, it has something to do with podcasts. Do you want to just give listeners a heads up of what's going on?
Sure. We've done a podcast that's been for probably 10 years now that's been published only on our website. And we finally got around to working on getting it out on the various podcatchers that are out there. And we're 90% of the way there. We're out now on 10 or 11 different podcatchers like Amazon Music. We're on Spotify, Podcatcher Index, a few others. The only one that we want to be on that we're not on yet is iTunes, and that takes a couple of weeks. But you will find us on iTunes in a few weeks, and we will have the last year or so of episodes on the catcher. We'll keep the older ones on about the last 5 or 6 years on our website, but you'll be able to hear some of the old ones, and all the new ones will be published on the Wednesday of each week. So on the Saturday morning, they'll be on the radio station, and we'll publish them out on our podcast sites on the Wednesday. So hopefully we'll be on iTunes in the next week or so, or week or two, and you'll be able to see it. But that's going well. Thanks, Rick.
It's good stuff. So listeners, you have an opportunity, even more access to the programming that you're hearing this morning. We're fortunate this morning to have a guest that I've known for a little bit of time here in my life. And he's a very interesting person to talk to. He has a very interesting perspective of life in addition to his industry. We're going to just focus on the industry side today, so no pressure, Ryan, okay? But I'd like to introduce Ryan Scott. And Ryan is the station manager for NBC26. So welcome to the program, Ryan.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Rick. Thanks, Terry. Thanks for having me.
Maybe it'd be easier if we could just have you start off, give listeners some background about you in your career path, where you've been and where you've gotten to so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I started at WTMJ Channel 4 in Milwaukee, my career, as a part-time teleprompter operator a long time ago, a little over 25 years ago, back in 1999. And I was with TMJ for about 23 years. In various roles along the way, as a director, as a producer, as a production manager, as a content operations manager, which kind of is a little bit of everything. It's day of stories that are going on. It's planning for big events. And then a little over 2.5 years ago, I had the opportunity to come to NBC26 as their news director. And came here and really fell in love with the community and what we were doing from a news standpoint. And I know we're going to talk about a little bit about that as well. And then last November, took on an additional title as station manager. So I oversee the day-to-day operations of the station as well as the news department. And so that's really where I've been. I'm a Wisconsin kid, born and bred. I'm a Badger, grew up in Waukesha County, went to Kettle Moraine High School. So, I'm from here. I've lived elsewhere a couple of times, but, Wisconsin is home and I love it and I vacation here and it's home and love being in Northeast Wisconsin.
Could you maybe expand on the station manager role just for listeners? I mean, you hear that term station manager, and what does that mean to the person out there who doesn't really know the TV industry?
Sure, absolutely. So it's the person at a station. So sometimes they're called general manager, sometimes they're called station manager. Even within our company, we have general managers and station managers. So the station manager is really kind of the person that sets the tone for, like I said, day-to-day operations of a television station, the culture of the television station, I'm the person that makes sure that the finances are where they need to be. We have an engineering department, we have a creative services department, obviously we have a sales department. We work with HR, IT, and then the largest department in any news station or any station is the news department. And so it really is making sure that everybody is on the same page, that we're all rowing in the same direction, and that each leader in those particular areas are really singing from the same hymn book. And that's the goal of any station manager, is to have a good culture, to do good work, to expect excellence, have a good place to work, but also be a benefit to the community.
What would, in your past, you mentioned quite an extensive resume. What in the past that you've done before really helped prepare you for your current role?
I think it helped that I've done a little bit of everything, in all honesty. So there's a lot of station managers and general managers that come up through sales. There's a lot of news directors that come up through specifically producing. I had a very non-traditional route, and it's probably one of the reasons that I got the job here as news director, is because we're about to embark on a pretty non-traditional strategy. And so I think doing what I've done, which is directing and being in the control room and being part of covering breaking news, debates, I think whether it's charitable events, anything like that, parades, I've done all of that from the control room side, and having to make those quick decisions and having to take in a lot of information at once. And then jumping to the management side and really understanding what goes into that, what goes into other people's jobs. And then the editorial side, which is what makes a good news story? What do we need to cover? Understanding that we're a visual medium and that sometimes our news stories might be a little bit different than a newspaper news story. But making sure that we are covering our community in the right way, in a fair way, in an objective way. And I've got a lot of experience. I mean, Milwaukee is a news market that probably overcompensates in news for the size market it is, meaning there's a lot of news that comes out of Milwaukee as a market that's about number 35, the 35th biggest television market in the country. There's a lot of news that comes out of Milwaukee. So a lot of experience was gained there. Politics, sports, news. There's a lot that comes from there. And I think I took a lot of that experience up here. And it really was the ability to handle many different things at once, set a vision for the station, and really look at different ways that we can broadcast news and look different than our newscasts always have.
So you mentioned the word vision. Can you maybe share with listeners what that vision is that you have with your staff up in NBC26?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something that I get really excited about. So we do neighborhoods here. And if some of your listeners haven't watched in a long time, we call it neighborhood news. Really what it is we have a lot of reporters who are geographically based. We looked at the overall model of news, right? And we said, all right, all of the television stations here are in Green Bay. And that means that most of the reporters, not all, live and work in Green Bay. They know Green Bay really, really well. But we also know that the television market, the Green Bay - Appleton, because it's a hyphenated market, the Green Bay Appleton television market is a huge geographic region, right? And you had a lot of communities that basically went unserved by television stations, and NBC26 included. And so we looked really closely at how do we change that? How do we have full market representation? How do we take viewers who feel ignored and give them representation? And so we went about this in a way, and this was me sort of, explaining what the vision is to our staff. and saying, we are going to be everywhere. We're going to hire more reporters, and we're going to have more reporters everywhere in this market. And we began that process. And now we have reporters in Fond du Lac, Sheboygan, Manitowoc, Oshkosh, Appleton, 3 or 4 in Green Bay, Door County, Neenah, Menasha. We have reporters all over the place. They live there. They work there. They're part of the community. They understand the community. They get to know the people in the community, not just the mayor, not just the police chief, but the people who own the shops on Main Street, the people who are going to the PTO meetings, the people who are going to the school board meetings. And they really, they're part of the community, and they report on the community. One of the things that we have seen for so long, and I think, and I grew up in a town of 400 people in Jefferson County, so I know this, right? The television stations only went to you when there was bad news. And they parachute in if there's breaking news, and that's the first time that anybody saw them. And the next time anybody saw them was when the next time there was bad news. And in this case, we are reporting on, yes, there's challenging stories we need to report on, but there's also dynamic people, and there's dynamic businesses, and there's great things happening in these communities. And this is a way for us to balance all of that. We are telling the good, the bad, we're introducing you to people, and we're earning trust that way. And people know, they know that Preston Stover is in Manitowoc, is in Two Rivers all the time. All right. We know that Margaret Cahill is in Fond du Lac, in Fond du Lac County all the time. And they start to gain sources, and they start to find out, reportable items. And the goal is that we have full market representation, and it's not just Green Bay. It's not just Appleton. It's not just the big cities.
One thing that stands out is you're doing that. What's so different than 20 years ago has got to be the technology aspect, where you don't have to have full crews out with you in every community. Has that been part of the success in being able to do this?
It absolutely has. So we have our reporters are called MMJs, which stands for multimedia journalist. And that means they're one-man bands. We give them a car, a camera, a computer, all the equipment that they could possibly need. And sometimes they come to us and say, hey, it would be really nice to have this. Maybe I need a tripod for my phone. Maybe I need a different microphone. And we go, okay, we analyze it and say, yeah, no, that would be nice. And so they're all self-contained, right? So you're right. It's very different. Now, that was a change in the industry probably about 20 years ago. The MMJ really started. We still have reporters that go out with photographers, and we still have photographers on staff or photojournalists on staff. But most of our reporters are what's called MMJs, and they are self-sufficient. There are times where there's a story that's so big that they need a photojournalist, or they need one of our drone pilots. We have 3 drone pilots on staff, and people who have, earned that their license, and so they'll go help them out. But they go, they shoot, they interview, they edit, they write, and then they post it on the web. They are a one-man band, and technology has changed that. The other way technology has changed this. And if you would have told me 20 years ago that we could do this, I'd say you're nuts. But, after the pandemic and everybody's on Zoom, we realized that we don't all need to be in the same room for everything, right? So Margaret, who lives in Fond du Lac, there's really no reason for her to drive up an hour to Green Bay every day for our editorial meetings and then drive back to do her work. So everything is hybrid. The people who are in the Green Bay area are at the station. The people who are in Fox Cities, further out in the Lakeshore, Door County, they appear via Zoom at our meetings. And then we make sure that they come in on a frequent basis to stay, have that touch point with the station. But technology has changed this a lot.
Okay. Sounds good. We're at the spot for a break. You've been listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after this.
Welcome back to Biz Talk on WHBY. WHY Radio. We're glad that you joined us this morning. We have our guest this morning is Ryan Scott, who is the station manager at NBC26 up in Green Bay. But before we go back to the conversation that we're having with Ryan, I'd like to just spend a moment to tell you a little bit about SCORE. Fox City SCORE serves an 8-county area with offices in Appleton, Oshkosh, and Fond du Lac. We have about 45 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. Those areas of expertise include IT, social media, marketing, cash flow, accounting, strategic planning, workflow, HR, retail best practices, and many, many others. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and or to learn more about the Fox City SCORE chapter, please visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn more about how the SCORE chapter can assist you with starting and or growing your business, and you can complete an application for a mentoring session. Simply complete the online form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will be contacting you to set up a meeting. And remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can offer you assistance in many different areas. To get started, visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. And to support small business people, Fox City SCORE is always looking for new mentors. If you have experience that you would like to share with others, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with experience in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference to their success. Go to score.org/Fox Cities, click on the volunteer button and fill out the short application, and we'll get back to you to explain more. So thank you again for joining us on Biz Talk. And Terry, I'll turn the show back over to you.
All right. So now, Ryan, we want to talk a little bit about leadership. It's one of the things that has changed so dramatically over the last 30, 40 years in business. And how do you define leadership?
That's a really good question. I think leadership is, it's sharing a vision for what you can be. I think it's being transparent. I think it's treating people with empathy and respect, but expecting excellence at the same time. Knowing your craft well, and expecting the people that you're leading to do the same. My theory behind leadership is hire really good people and let them do their jobs. But I do think transparency and really imparting that vision on people and explaining the why, right? Why are you making the decisions that you're making? Sometimes it's in a broad strategic function, and sometimes it's a, kind of a workflow minutia item that you have to go, why are you doing this? And I think if you can be as transparent as you possibly can be, I do think people appreciate that.
Okay. And is leadership different in the television industry, or is it similar to other places?
It's the only industry I've worked in other than, in school I was a waiter and I dug ditches for a landscape company. And so the leadership there was probably a little bit different than it is in television. I'll be honest, I don't know. I only know leaders in the television industry, and I know we've all worked for good leaders and bad leaders, right? And I think as a leader myself, you take, to quote Facts of Life, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them all, and there you have, right? It is, you take the good from the good leaders that you've had, and you try to emulate that. You take the bad or the stuff that you wouldn't do, and you try to avoid doing that. And then you talk in your own voice. So I think leadership in the television industry is, you have all different kinds of people that come into this industry, and you have people you'd run through a wall for, right? And you'd have people you'd like to drop that wall on sometimes. And I'm not saying that I'm not that person sometimes on both sides. But I think leadership in the television industry is, it tends to be people who have a ton of passion for what they do. whether it's on the news side, whether it's on the sales side, whether it's on the creative side, or whether it's on the engineering side. It is not a 9-to-5 job. It's crazy hours. It's crazy things happen. You never know when news is going to happen. Last few weeks, there's been quite a news cycle on weekends. With the presidential campaign, with Biden dropping out and the attempted assassination of former President Trump. Those all happen on weekends. You just never know. So being a leader in this industry, it really means you're willing and available and able to jump in at any time.
And that's something that, as we sit and look around at companies and nonprofits too, the change that's going on now is so incredible. And for people to be leaders, the first thing they've got to give up on is this a 40-hour-a-week job. If you're at a senior role, it just isn't. And you wish it could be, but it can't because of the people that rely on you.
Yeah, it's not realistic, right?
Yeah.
40 hours is right. I'll typically hit that by probably Wednesday of a week, right? But it's because I love what I do too.
Yep.
If I didn't love what I do, it probably would feel more like work. But you're right. In a lot of organizations, you have people working there. I think my morning producer, she walks in the door at 11:30 p.m., midnight. So, and usually my night side folks, they're leaving around the same time. So in most television stations, you have people there 24 hours a day. And it's important that you're there for them in case there is an emergency. And, that happens. You have to be present too. Not that you can't have your own time. And I think that has been a struggle for me, is separating myself at times. I tend to want to be very, very connected. But I think it's good for your team to know that they can do the job without you and without some sort of constant connection. And I think for many of us, especially in the news business, we all have to work hard on disconnecting ourselves because, for our mental health, I think it's healthy to disconnect, reset, and come back more energized than ever.
Okay. We're at the spot for our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Biz Talk. This week we're talking to Ryan Scott from NBC26. Before we get back to Ryan, want to talk about an educational opportunity. For the second year, SCORE is sponsoring a conference called Accelerate Your Business for Women 24. As I mentioned, it's their second year doing it, and this year is going to be presented by all the Wisconsin SCORE chapters working together. It's September 30th at the Kalahari Conference Center in Wisconsin Dells, an all-day event, and we strongly recommend it. It's a great opportunity to network, to learn from other women leaders. There'll be speakers there. There's seminars. It's low cost. You can go to our website at score.org/Fox Cities, and you'll see it on the front page. Go on and register. And it was a great event last year, and we hope you'll enjoy it again this year. So take advantage of that. And I'll turn you back over to Rick.
So our guest again this morning is Ryan Scott from NBC26, and you're listening to Biz Talk with SCORE on WHBY Radio. Ryan, you brought up the neighborhood news vision that you talked about earlier in the program. Could you maybe delve into some of the challenges that you might have faced in bringing that to the table at the station? What kind of reaction did you get, and what kind of challenges are you facing ongoing?
Yeah, I will say the reaction I got was almost 100% positive. And because it makes sense. It's an easy concept to understand, and it's a pretty easy concept to sell. We have more reporters than anybody else, and they're in parts of our market that nobody else is in on an everyday basis. It makes sense to people, right? When I announced that we were doing that, it was tougher for some of the people who had already been here because, they were living in Green Bay and we were going to ask them to travel to Oshkosh every day. And so I think that was tougher. But we got over that. And then as I was hiring people, I hired people specifically knowing that this was our strategy. This was our, structure. And, we gave them the option of where do they want to cover. We have open, some communities around Green Bay, and we have opened the Lakeshore communities. I specifically gave Preston Stover, who is our Manitowoc Two Rivers Lakeshore reporter, I gave him that option. He picked Lakeshore. He wanted to be in Manitowoc and Two Rivers because he believed so strongly in this concept. And so a lot of people did that. Margaret Cahill, same thing. Fond du Lac. She chose Fond du Lac. Claire Peterson, who's now in Oshkosh, she knew going into it, I'll be living in Oshkosh. I'll be reporting in Oshkosh. Noah Cornelius, who's in Appleton, same thing. So those challenges quickly turned. And then ever since then, it like I said, a very easy concept to sell. Some of our challenges really are, we're asking a lot of reporters, young reporters, many of them, this is their second job or they're right out of school, to learn this craft a little bit differently than their peers are learning it in other markets. A lot of other markets, you're grabbing a press release, you're looking on social for story ideas, and a lot of them are kind of based in the big city or in the city around the station. In this particular case, what we're asking a lot of our young journalists to do is to go into a community that hasn't had a reporter, to earn that trust with the community, and to really be enterprising and not have news fed to them on a silver platter. And, that presents some challenges. It does. And for the most part, our staff has done a really, really good job with that. Creating those relationships, finding those stories, finding stories that would never have been reported on had they not been there. The other thing that we run into, and this is still something that we're still figuring out, is there is a feeling of, with a lot of our reporters who are away from Green Bay, of not being part of the team as much as they would like to be, right? Because they're not in the building as much as their peers are, their colleagues are. And so that's something that we really, really have worked on from day one, which is how can we get you into the station and around the team and around your colleagues on a more consistent basis? And that has evolved over the years. We have them come in every 2 weeks and work with their boss, with someone called an executive reporter, for coaching sessions and to look at much like a football coach. You're looking at stories, you're looking at how it's shot, you're looking at how it's written, you're looking at how it's told. So they come in for that. And then recently, a little less, towards the end of last year, we started doing all newsroom meetings every at least once a month, and where somebody brings in pastries from their neighborhood, whatever their neighborhood bakery is. And I will tell you, I have eaten more great donuts and pastries from Appleton and Fond du Lac and Manitowoc and Pulaski and Door County than I could have imagined. There's some amazing, amazing bakeries in Northeast Wisconsin, and I never would have known that had it not been for having our neighborhood reporters bring those in at least once a month. So we continue to work through some of these challenges, but overall, I think the benefits far, far outweigh them.
Now, to you as station manager, how did you coach and create that team culture that you just talked about remotely? What kind of things have you been doing?
So the first thing I do when it comes to team culture is literally during my interview, I set this up with, this is the first and second job for a lot of people. I want people coming in here cheering for their colleagues. I want everybody fighting for the lead story. Absolutely. They all should be fighting for the lead story. But I want them to be really happy when their colleagues experience success. When they get a promotion, when they get when they get an exclusive story, when they move on in the company to a bigger market potentially, or whatever the case may be. I'm trying to create that culture where we're really happy for each other's success. Many of your listeners probably have Slack. We have a Slack channel. It's called That Was Awesome. And it's just a place for people to throw great things that happened on that Slack channel to people. And so I do think it's really, really important, especially in this industry that can be really, really difficult. A lot of times you're talking to people on the worst days. People aren't always happy to see you. You need to have that support system, and that support system needs to be the newsroom. And yes, sometimes it is remote. And sometimes we have to have those empathetic, difficult conversations where we're just listening. We're just listening to, challenges that our team out in the field have had. But I do think all in all, it is a culture of making sure that we have each other's backs that is the most important, and celebrating the wins. We got to celebrate the wins too.
So why is commitment to creating value and building a culture with a specific focus on accuracy and audience and advertiser and employee satisfaction so important to you?
Well, with accuracy, it's all about trust, right? If you're a news organization and you're not accurate, you're nothing. We traffic in facts. I mean, we do get pushback from time to time with viewers, and I will tell you, objectivity and facts is number one, period, end of story. And it can be the smallest fact. We call it out and we fix it. And if we screwed up, we lean into it and we apologize for it. And so I think that's part of it. Once you create that trust and you create people who will come back to you on a day in and day out basis, I think that's what brings in value for our advertisers as well, right? Our advertisers are looking for something different. We are something different. If you watch us and you watch our competitors, you're going to see a different product. So our advertisers are looking for something different, something forward looking, something that looks like today. And I think they're looking for somewhere that is tied into not only the Green Bay community, which is incredibly important, but the entire market. And that you can pull in viewers and people going on the web from all across our we call it DMA, but our market, which is basically from Fond du Lac County north to the border of Upper Michigan. So our advertisers know that we are pulling in viewers from that entire region, and I think that's incredibly beneficial.
So when you look at the structure of your station and how you operate, you've got a lot, and we've talked a bit about this already, you've got a lot of people out in different locations. You've introduced a new way of working and doing things that isn't well known across the industry yet, coming on, but starting to do more. You're hiring a lot of young people, and you're really trying to manage change brought about both externally and internally. Mm-hmm. Does that not create a lot more stress on you to make this work?
Yes, but I don't think I'd function without stress. Yes. I've been a change manager ever since I've become a manager. And I like to think I've gotten better at it. I've had some amazing mentors along the way. It certainly hasn't always come naturally to me. Our senior vice president of news, a gentleman by the name of Jeff Kiernan, was the most amazing change manager I've ever seen. And so I learned a lot from him. And friends and colleagues along the way, Tim Betcher in Milwaukee, Marcus Riley, who's part of our corporate team, amazing change managers as well. And we've all worked for change managers who aren't great. To me, change management and changing the way you do an entire industry, yeah, it takes a little bit of selling. It takes a little bit of hearing people out. I think the number one thing is you impart that vision. Here's the vision. That's part one. Part two is, Why are we doing this? Why are we doing it? Well, we've seen what happened to newspapers. We've talked about what's happened to radio and the change over to podcasts, right? We use, for an example, look what's happened to Blockbuster. Look at what happened to Kodak. Look at what happened to places that industries that didn't change. We need to change what we're doing. We cannot continue to do television the way that it was done 30 years ago, because that's not what people are watching necessarily nowadays. All right. So we have to do something different. So we have to change. And the one constant in our industry is change. And so that's part of it. It's really imparting, here's the change. Here's why we're doing it. Here's how we're doing it. And then I think it's leaning into, from a change management standpoint, listen, I'm going to screw something up along the way. All right. I use the term stub our toes. We're going to stub our toes. We're going to screw it up. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to back up. We're going to fix it. And we're going to move forward the right way. And we certainly did. I mean, we were in a cave with no light, feeling our way around as we were launching this thing. And we figured out a lot, and we got better and better and better at it. And what I'm really, really proud of is there are now 12 stations in our company that are doing the neighborhood news concept. And to be on the ground floor of that is I'm incredibly proud of it. But I like change management. To me, it's a chance to do something different. It's a chance to try something new. I think from a management standpoint, a lot of times it's hearing out people's concerns. Sometimes they're valid, and sometimes it's people who don't like change. And sometimes you're hearing out those concerns in a large group. Sometimes it's a small group, and sometimes it's one-on-one. And making sure that you're heard, but making sure that you're still focused and everyone is aware and on the same page with which way you're going. I also think from a management standpoint, the most important thing is every leader in your building has to be on board, has to be on the same page, because people will find that person who's not, right? And if you're all singing from that same hymn book, and if you all have the same reasons why you're doing it, you will be successful.
When I was working on change projects throughout my career, and almost every one, there was a time when suddenly it hit me. This is going to work or it's not. Was there a time during this process that you, all of a sudden out of nowhere you got, we're going to make this work. It's working.
Yeah. You know when that time was? So it was, I knew that we were going to, no, I had announced it in February. So I came up here. I'm sorry. I'm being sort of jumping around here. I came up here in December of 21. If you remember, if you're a Packers fan, you remember the Packers made a run almost to the Super Bowl, right? They end up losing to the 49ers, if I'm not mistaken. All right. So everything was put on pause in terms of our launch date because we needed to get through Packers season first. So I announced the team in February. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is our deadline for it. All right. And so we worked through some of the challenges for the first month or so, and then it was spring break. And my family and I have two kids. And so my wife and my two kids, rather than going someplace warm, which I don't know why I didn't, we decided, because I still needed to get to know Northeast Wisconsin a little bit better, we decided to just wander around Northeast Wisconsin. And so we were in Manitowoc on a Tuesday morning in March, and the weather was terrible, and it was raining, and it was miserable. And we're going, why didn't we go to Florida this year? And we walk into a coffee shop in Manitowoc on a Tuesday, and it's packed. It's packed full of people. And I want, this is going to work. Look at all these people in this community that are busy, and this is their community, and they're being totally underserved by the news product on any of our television stations. And when we bring someone here, they're going to have a voice. They're going to have someone they can reach out to. They're going to have that watchdog, right? That's kind of when I said, I know this is going to And then people started buying in pretty quickly. And I'm passionate about what we do. I couldn't work as hard as I do without being super passionate about what I do. And I love to my soul, I think this is the way that news should be. And I think it probably coming from a small town, right? But as soon as people started coming on, we started seeing some successes, and we started seeing some exclusive stories and parts. There are times where the relationships that our reporters had created turned into success, whether it was during breaking news or whether it was, again, an exclusive. And so I've seen a lot of success along the way. But it was that trip to Manitowoc on a crummy March Tuesday that really set in stone, like, I think this is going to work.
Okay, great. We're at the point for our last break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBI, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'd like to thank the sponsors and donors who bring Biz Talk with Score to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. A special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to the Business News, you should. It's delivered biweekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. Thank you to Haling & Associates. Haling & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for taxes, thereby helping you minimize your taxes for this year and beyond. Haling & Associates, personal connection, positive results. We would also like to recognize the David L. and Rita E. Nelson Fund within the Community Foundation for the Fox Valley region for their generous donation and support of Biz Talk and Fox City Score.
So, all right, let's give you Ryan a chance to talk about how people can reach out to NBC26 to learn more.
Absolutely. Well, you can go to NBC26.com and you can check out all the news that we have. If you go to the About Us page, all of our community reporters are there, including myself. My bio is on there, and if you have a story idea, if you love something we did, if you didn't like something we did, I'm happy to hear from you. And of course, if you have a story idea or any tips, either reach out to me or news@NBC26.com.
All right. So in addition to the news, what other things are under your purview that you're responsible for at the station, Ryan, as far as programming and things?
Yeah. So we also, not only do we have WGBA, we have WACY, which is TV 32. And it's been a lot of fun to help program that station as well. One of the things that as viewing habits change, really live sports is one of those things that is appointment viewing. And people DVR a lot, but they don't DVR live sports as much. And so this last year, we entered into a pretty substantial broadcast agreement with the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers. So we were broadcasting 54 of their home games on TV 32 this season. We broadcast all the Wisconsin Herd games, obviously the Milwaukee Bucks G League team based out of Oshkosh. So that's exciting. We have HBCU football and basketball. We do Showdown, which is high school football every Friday during the football season. The circus comes to town, and we have a live production truck and 7 or 8 crew members and a sideline reporter, and Ted Stefaniak and John Mino show up and call the games, and it's a lot of fun. And then coming up here soon, we have Good Morning Football Overtime on WACY as well. So really trying to turn that into a sports and news outlet, which I'm pretty excited about.
Great. Ryan, thank you very much for being on the show. It was really good to hear about what the station has been doing to try and really bring listeners in. And so you're doing a great job at it, too. For our listeners, You'll be able to catch this show again in about a week on our website at biztalkwithscore.com and hopefully soon on iTunes and the other podcatchers. We really appreciate all of you, but thanks again for listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we will talk to you next week. Thank you.